A very good morning to one and all. I welcome all the participants, the dignitaries on the dais and other faculty members for this workshop on the art of scientific communication. This entire week of Research Day celebration, this seems to be the crown of the Research Day celebrations because we are going to have a very important and interesting topics today. Unless otherwise, we clinicians and the researchers communicate our work, it's not going to be useful for the society or for the other peer members. We should be able to tell our work clearly, precisely, and it should be taken by the public and it should be taken by other peers. Then only it will be useful. So the entire program is made in such a manner that it will be, at the end of the workshop, we'll be able to do science communications very well. I'll request our Dean, Professor P.F. Kotur, sir, to give the welcome and the inaugural address of this workshop. Sir, please. Sir, inauguration and
very good morning to one and all over here. Today's resource person for the first session, Professor Sonali, Director Research, Professor Bhatt, Professor Mahalakshmi, Dr. Pushpa, and Dr. Aarti, Ravi, and our PG coordinator. The topic on which I will be sharing some thoughts in the next 15 minutes, it is 9:25 now, will be on science communication. Before that, I was just wondering, is it a hands-on training workshop on science communication or scientific communication? I put some thought on that because both are being used synonymously. The poster on the road which is there, science communication, and now here I have written science communication. Prior to that there was scientific communication, and I really tried to do something, find out what is the hairline difference between science communication and scientific communication. Both are not identical. Please understand that. Now I will be sharing my thoughts on that, trying to differentiate between science and scientific communication. Prior to that, some things which you all know, that when scientist communicates properly, effectively, science thrives. Scientific American, that was a quote from Scientific American. If the scientist does the research and keeps quiet to himself, and if he is not able to communicate, it will not reach the beneficiary end user, and it is of no use. And to be a good scientist, you need to be a good communicator too. And see, not to be confused with scientific communication, that's what I was trying to tell. Now let us see what is science. Science is defined as an observation, or it can be identification, description, experimental investigation, and this is the dictionary definition I have taken. Communication is of course an act of sharing your thoughts, your exchanging information, ideas and feeling. That is the dictionary meaning of science communication. So it is the practice of informing, the educating, creating awareness about science or science related topics, and increasing the sense of wonder about some science is interesting. You find out something, Archimedes found out something and he ran out of the tub on the road. He was excited. He was excited to let know his findings. Now here in this one, who is informing whom? Communicator is of course a scientist. Communicatee can be his peer. Communicatee can be the general public. So it can be expert or it can be non-expert communicatee. And of course by this science communication you generate support from the, suppose you do a research and it needs to be supported means patronized, to be made use of, to bring the overall quality of life of the mankind. And here in this whole definition, communicators and communicatee are ambiguously defined. Who is the communicator, who is the communicatee? Communicator is fine, and communicatee might be an expert or public, lay public. And here in between the communicator and communicatee, level of knowledge, level of understanding, level of interest. I am a communicator, you are all communicatee. My interest, my passion, it may not be reciprocated by you. It's really a tricky situation. Now, the types of science communication, one is outreach, another one is in-reach. Very simple to understand. Outreach is typically conducted by a professional scientist to non-expert audience, general public, or the people from other profession, where the inward is to your peers. So, the second is the in-reach communication is scientific communication. Scientific communication by way of scientific publications in peer journals, in journals or articles. They will be read by many of the times. Many of the times by experts or peers, persons belonging to your profession. So that is the line of difference between scientific and science communication. So scientific communication could be a part of science communication. Then the communication is to your peers. You all belong to the medical fraternity, you are all peers. So I am communicating the research of my findings to you through publication in the journals. You read that. Whereas, the findings of the science can be communicated to the non-experts by way of newspapers, by way of radios, by way of films. You must have seen many scientific movies. The famous movies you can think of. The robot was invented. Which can anybody remember which film was that which showed communicated that how a robot can be created? The very famous Rajinikanth movie. Yes? Sorry? Isn't it? So, there are different ways of communication, that is to educate the public, or you can say to let know the findings. And types of communication, it can be a verbal communication, written communication, or it can be a visual communication. I can, now Lata has come, I can just ask like this. And neither I have written nor I have talked, but I asked why. Isn't it? So you can communicate by other methods as well. Written, verbal, non-verbal, listening, signing, you all are aware of it. The thumb rule of this communication, science communication or scientific communication is, there is a communicator and there is a communicatee. If you are all communicatees, if you don't understand what I am talking, who is at fault? Huh? What I am talking, if you don't understand, who is at fault? Huh? Huh? Communicator, it's my fault, no? You come late and you don't understand, then also it is my fault. Okay, there are 7 C's, the communication has to be explicit, clear, correct, complete, concise, considered, then only it will be understood. And you should communicate in such a way, the communicative, in what way you want to know, in what way you want to be communicated. Suppose all the communicators say that we want a written communication. If I try to give only oral, verbal, then it will not. So communicating in a way what the communicator wants, in what type, what form, then it will be effective communication. This I have already said about various uses, various ways of communicating the scientific findings by way of humor, by way of film, by way of role plays. We are all quite familiar. We want to create awareness about National Tuberculosis Day is coming on 27th or 28th of March. So our team of AVMC will go into the villages. They make a role play. Try to drive away the wrong notions about tuberculosis. Try to tell the facts of tuberculosis. Tuberculosis is curable. That kind of thing. It can be made use of. So apart from being a good researcher, you need to inculcate or incorporate these qualities also of various ways of communication. Then only you will be the correct communicator. Now, these are all familiar with the blogs, infograph, illustration. With the explosion in information and communication technology, communication of science communication or scientific communication has broadened its methods, broadened its ways to reach the stakeholders. See, you all know this is a fact, effective communication can enrich. See, research guards against stagnation. What do you mean by that? You won't get stagnated. Some new ideas will come, new methods will come, new therapies will come. We all aimed at enhancing the related health, it has a quality of life. And the public also will come to know how the knowledge is produced, how. Yes, madam, which department? Come here. Which department? Why? Duty? Huh? Duty? So HOD is not here. The HODs were told to relieve all the PGs, don't put any duties. What? Sorry, no meaning here. Now, this science of scientific communication translate the findings of the research into a practice. I do some research and find out best therapy for, COVID taught us so many things about science communication, scientific communication, methods, what the role the WhatsApp played during that time, leading the community, misleading the community, all possible things can happen by communication. Please remember that. So, whatever any research I do, I find out some good therapy for a particular ailment, then if that doesn't reach the end user, then it is no use. So, how this research has to be translated into a practice? The tool of transmission is the scientific communication or the articles. This is what I like to say. And it is the only available path for the update of any specialty. Every specialty is emerging, new things are coming. It is through these tools of translation, the expanding knowledge is expanding. This is the only available path for taking the richer to the end user. Now, why publication? Why science communication? Why scientific publication? I am an ardent researcher. I found out this exciting thing. I want to let know the public, let know the community. It enhance my self-esteem. That's one. Now, another reason is, albeit misplaced universal emphasis on publications as a tool of assessment of professional competence. You all must be familiar, these promotions, hierarchical promotions in medical colleges. For the assistant professor to associate 3 publications, associate to another publication. So, as the date of promotion approaches, number of the article publication enhances. So, this, of course, you do teaching, you do research, you do patient care, you do administration. Amongst all these 4 scholarly acts, research or the publications are considered as the tool of professional competence, growth. So, that is the reason. We are not here to judge right or wrong, but this is the system. For anybody, any post, any promotions, any reward, number of publications plays an important role. And that leads somebody to write for the sake of writing, for getting the reward. That results in very poor quality publication. If an ardent research is done with a research instinct, research mind, and research scientific basis, something nice will come out. But many of the publications for this purpose, to satisfy this misplaced universal emphasis on publication for promotions, lead to these kind of things. See, this is a very beautiful sentence I like. Teaching institutions rely on publications as the coins that academics must use to get through the toll gates on their way to academic promotion. It is a fact. That's why all of my MEU team, research team, is breaking their head to put that thought into your mind. You will be all professionals after another 5-6 months. Isn't it? When you are having exam after 5-6 months? When? Huh? You are not taking. When? Why you are Okay. See, this I already said, thrill of acceptance. See, suppose your article gets published, your name comes there as the first author, second author, corresponding author, and so you feel thrilled. And enhance the credibility and personal or professional fulfillment for having chosen to be a doctor, for having chosen to be a teacher. I published 2 articles, 3 articles, that is my esteem. And good writer automatically becomes a good peer reviewer, good advisor, good editor, good policy maker. Now, couple of thoughts about the scientific communication. So, having told why anybody is writing an article, making a scientific publication, transgression, crossing the borders and adopting shortcut or wrong methods of publishing. Many of you know, all of your dissertations will undergo plagiarism check because we doubt your integrity, whether you have copied from somewhere. These are all things, isn't it? So, this transgression of communication is, of course, why anybody does that, it is a demanding who will take out all the references, who will take out these. Like the best thing will be to copy from somewhere. Seminar, the student comes and he has downloaded, the 4 PowerPoints are available now. No? And cool. This is the thing. So, unfortunately, transcrimination is encountered quite often than it is expected, done by the learned authors in a variety of ways, times unknowingly and majority of the times deliberately. And you must have seen, the author of the, editor of the Canadian journal, medical journal, he was removed. And these kind of things, many known internationally reputed journals, it happens. And some awardees, you must be knowing very famous one, our Bharat Ratna C.N.R. Rao, who was a scientific advisor to the Prime Minister. He was involved in plagiarism. You must have read in the papers. So this transgression, of course he was not involved. He was the guide, and without his knowledge he would not have had time, but that the explanation he gave. But ultimately when your name comes, you have to own the responsibility. This is, see me, I will share 1 or 2 experiences about this transgression of scientific communications. I had an opportunity to work as an editor for nearly a decade of national journal and international journal. We did 2 interesting studies there. We used to, of course, print only 20 articles in issue bi-monthly, 6 issues a year. About 120 articles we used to publish every year, and we used to receive about almost 6 times the number. So we used to receive about 4,000 to 5,000 articles per year. Out of that we used to select on various criteria. Then we found out a study wherein what is the percentage of different types of transgression in scientific study. See this, 5,320 articles we received at the editorial office starting from 2001 to 2007. And out of that, plagiarism, that is plagiarism you all know, I don't need to spend time on that. It is an unearned increment, or the word plagiarism is derived from a Latin word kidnapping, stealing somebody's thoughts, stealing somebody's intellectual thoughts. So dishonest, it was more than 40% of the articles in this plagiarism. Then copyright infringement, even though you are same, but here illegal and unauthorized use of a copyrighted material, table, graph, diagrams, that was to the tune of almost 19%. And rampant was gift authors, because many of the articles out of the 5,320, about at least 20-30% were from the dissertation completions of the postgraduates, and postgraduate, the HOD will not forward it further unless his name is put in that. That was the time. So, gift authorship without any intellectual contribution. In the department, some junior staff member does, and he puts his name. Put the dean's name. Yes. So this is the gift authors. These are all various methods of transgression. You know that. And identifying the ghost authorship. Ghost authorship is a person is intellectually has contributed, but his name is not there. He has been a ghost. Identifying this is a very tricky thing and difficult thing. By write-up of an unknown person, you have to judge who must have written it. There are various tools, stylometry, those kind of a thing, just keep it in the back of the mind. So these are various methods, and this is our own finding. Another thing is, out of the 5,000 plus, only 120 we used to select. Remaining, even those who are rejected from any journal are not bad articles. They may not fulfill other criteria. And what are the common problems, common pitfalls in the publication? Too much information than what is needed, too little information, inaccurate information, the structure of the study itself was wrong, and the problems of organization, infrastructure not followed. These are some of the problems we classified when we did that test. It's another second study. Poorly planned study, poorly conducted study, and poorly presented study. Anything can be possible. So last, the take-home message is, authorship cannot be controlled even by one who is ready to shoulder the response. You go to that website, ICMAG, International Committee for Medical Journal Editors. Who is an author? Who is a peer reviewer? They have given duty. Whoever has got gives intellectual contribution to an article, he is an author, not anybody else. It is the duty of a true researcher to take the personal responsibility of publishing a valid, readable, scientific material written by a true author. Suppose I write something, do some research, put somebody Dr. Bhatt's name without any contribution, I am at fault, not Dr. Bhatt. Again, like that. Thank you very much. Some thoughts which probably we have got eminent speakers following up communication with the stakeholders, fund communicator with peers, and various titles. This day-long workshop will be there in the till evening today. And my appeal to all my postgraduates is to make use of the scientific fields or the expertise that is put forth. Just listen for I try to ask questions. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you on science communications, the significance of communicating science to our peers, public and the experts, and highlighting the thumb rule of communication. Ultimately, it is nothing but translate research into clinical practice. That's why we want all of you to attend this session. And finally, we have taken the take-home message which you have given to publish a valid research with good scientific material by a true author. Thank you, sir. Now I would like to invite Dr. Vishnu sir to give the memento to our speaker, Dr. P.F. Kotur sir, Dean AVMC.